Hello everyone, this is Kelly at the Inky Gnome for Miss Ink Stamps YouTube channel today. Today I'm going to make a card using only some of the new frame dies and stencils from MissInkStamps May and June release. So first I just cut a panel, and I apologize for the focusing on this first part of the video. I think I've found out the problem why it sometimes does that, so I will not let it happen again, but it gets better. I first just cut out a front card panel to use the high swirl frame die stencil set that goes along with the frame dies. These are so great. They fit in to the frame die perfectly, and there's a few different ways to use them. But here I am taking one of the large stencils and using that to stencil only the portion that's going to be inside of the thin swirly frame that's in the high swirl frame die set, so that I can just add some focus to that panel inside of the frame. So I'm just taking a light blue and just kind of building it up. I want it to be darker around the edges and get softer in the middle. Just have a focal point pointing towards the middle of the card for my main piece that I'm going to use. And I'm using the high as well from that swirl high swirl frame die set as my main focal point. I took a bunch of the flower dies, the little flower dies from the high swirl set, as well as the Oh Happy Day frame set, and I just die cut a bunch of the flowers out of just a nice heavy white cheap cardstock. That's a great way to get more out of what you have. I do believe in using what you have and love, but colored cardstock can be expensive, so I know I can be a little chintzy with it at times as well. So it's a good way to get color with just using some cheap white cardstock that you can buy a big pack of and have on hand. So I just cut a couple rounds of all of the small little flower and leaf dies from those sets and cut them out in that white. And I'm just using some Post-it tape upside down there with the sticky side. I stuck it to my pants one time to ease up the stick a little bit more, so that because these are very little pieces, so that they wouldn't stick too well, but stick them to that so that they are face up, so that you can color them easily without trying to maneuver them around. And I'm just using, these are actually watercolor markers that I got from a class, and I'm not watercoloring with them today, but I just thought they were great colors to use. They're all like bold, bright colors, and that's what I wanted for this. So I'm just coloring the leaves green and the flowers every different color of the markers that I have. And I'm going to use that. I cut the background, which I love when there is a sentiment that has a shadow die. It's so much fun. There's so many things you can do with it. So I cut the shadow for the background in black, and also cut the actual high letters that will go in front of that in black as well. And I'm going to use that to build up a base to make that really stand out. So I have a sheet of like the tiny dot adhesive paper. So I'm just sticking those all to that so that they get adhesive on the back, but it doesn't show through, like show around the edges when I put it on the lettering. You could also just use a liquid adhesive on it. You can also, for coloring, besides using markers, of course, you can color with anything. Another easy way to color a bunch of flowers like this would be to use little stencil brushes and just go in with that. And then you can get some variation of color as well. I just wanted some bright, deep colors on these, so I wasn't worried about that for this particular project. But that's another great way to color a bunch of them at once, or use a gel press to push them a bunch of white die cuts on to color a bunch of them at once. That's another great way as well. Now that they're all sticky on the back, all these flowers and leaves, I'm taking the high die cut. That's the top of the sentiment, and just filling them in, and you don't have to worry about the edges because you're going to see what I do in a minute here. But you're just going to fill in as much as you want, and I'm trying to cover up most of that black background from the high and just fill it in with all the flowers. So I just, when I put them on the sticky paper, I kind of group them by colors in color groups so that I could easily kind of take turns picking out colors to make sure that I get, you know, a little bit of each, and they're kind of scattered around with every different color. I'm just filling in all of the spots on the high, and I decided, because the dot for the eye would only hold one flower probably anyways. I mean, you could go in with a few different small flowers and put it on that to cut it out again, but I decided to just use a flower on the actual shadow portion of the high to just highlight the circle that would be the top of the eye. So you're going to see that in a moment, but I'm just finishing putting all of the different little, that's what these little teeny flowers are so great for doing things like this, because you can add a lot of color to a small space. And I'm just going to use this high as really the only big color on this card. So I'm just putting one of those small flowers just right into the middle there of the actual shadow die, and not using the dot from the front of it. And here you see the die that I used. I just recut over what I had already done to clean up those edges and cut off all the excess from the flowers that I layered on there to get a perfect edge back around it. And I just love the look of this. It's a great die for doing things like this because it's a bold font for that high, but it's also not so large that it would be a ton of work. You know, you can do a lot of little work like this on a die that size, so it's perfect for that. I'm just weighting it down to make sure that everything is stuck together well. And there you see I also die cut the frame for that in black and put that on there. I also used one of the stitching frames from the sets to just cut out that front panel so that I could use foam tape to pop it up. I used some thinner foam tape on the back of the high to also pop that up right in the middle. You could also put this offset in a corner, but this is my main focus of this card, and it's so bright and pretty, and I wanted that to really stand out in the middle and get that kind of the light shaded area from the stenciling. So I wanted to put that right in the middle there. I'm just using some clear gems on this so that they don't take away from that focal point, but just add a little extra and kind of pull your eye across the card front. And I'm just putting on a white card base, and that's it. And it's such a fun technique to use these for. I can't wait to see what everything does with all these fun frame sets. They're so great. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.